Good morning and welcome to Rose Red Homestead. Today's video goes directly to food security. I guess it's been about a month or 6 weeks ago that Jim said that he found an article in the New York Times that might be of interest to our viewers, and should we make a video on it? And as I looked over the article, I thought it was a fantastic idea. And so here it is. The name of the article is "Do I Need to Refrigerate Ketchup? An A to Z Guide to Storing Condiments." And the basic idea here is that they went through a number of condiments, the common condiments, and contacted experts, looked at the government health and safety information, and it's a very nice article talking about whether or not we should store these condiments in the refrigerator or whether they're okay in the pantry. This is not hard science. There are no really hard and fast rules for some things. I'm going to put the link to the article below the description of this video so that you can access it as well. I'm just going to give the highlights, but it is quite interesting. One of the things that they say is that for some things like ketchup, which is why they use that in the title, there's always a conundrum about whether or not you should refrigerate it or not. And there can be disagreements among household heads about whether or not it goes in the refrigerator. Another comment that they made was almost all condiments do say refrigerate after opening. And yet, when things are made to be shelf stable, that isn't always necessary. So their recommendations are a little bit loose, and what it boils down to, there's just a basic overarching rule of thumb. They say that if when you buy it in the grocery store, it's in the refrigerated section, then when you bring it home, it should go in your refrigerator. If it's out on the shelf as shelf stable, then it doesn't need to go into the refrigerator, except sometimes they do after opening. So we're going to go through each one that they present. I have some, I don't have all that are in this list, but I'm sure I'm going to do everything, whether or not I can actually show it to you, because I know that there are some of you that will have those condiments. So one of the things they also mention, which I thought was very wise, is that you need to consider your lifestyle in terms of a particular condiment. Do you use it regularly? Do you use up a bottle or a jar or a package of it in a very short time span? Then maybe it's okay to leave it in the pantry. But if it is a year or more that it takes you to use a bottle, it might belong in the refrigerator. So we'll go through each thing and let you know what they have to say. So the first one is butter and ghee. Now, ghee is a derivative of butter. It is butter. I use butter to make this ghee, and I just boil the butter until all of the milk solids fall to the bottom of the pan and turn brown, scorch a little bit so they stay on the bottom. And then I pour the top off. Some people call it clarified butter, but clarified butter is one step on the way to ghee. Ghee goes just a little bit beyond that. Now, what they say about butter is it is safe at room temperature. Although if you keep butter out in a butter keeper or just on a plate, like my mother used to do, it will begin to get an off taste after a while. So it's pretty important that you use it up fairly quickly. And it also can go in the refrigerator with no problem. Now with ghee, because the milk solids are out of this, ghee is shelf stable. And what they say is with ghee, you can keep it in your pantry, never having to refrigerate it for up to 6 months. Well, I don't know if you can see the date on this one, but I processed this exactly 2 years ago this month. At the end of June in 23. We were getting ready for a move, and which never materialized, but at the time we were getting ready for a move, and I had a lot of butter stored in the freezer, so I just turned it all into ghee. This ghee is 2 years old. It has been out in our garage in our food storage, and it tastes just as good as the day that I made it. When I was researching ghee, I've been making ghee for probably 5, almost 6 years now. And one of our earliest videos on this channel is about making ghee. I did a lot of research, and I went to sites for the population of people who use ghee on a regular basis. And what they all said was that it has an indefinite shelf life. So it is a great way to store butter. We keep butter in either the freezer or the refrigerator until we're ready to use it, but ghee goes right in the pantry. So that's butter. Next is capers, and I'm all out of capers, but what they say about capers is that they are submerged in brine, making them fairly shelf stable, and either in brine or vinegar or packed in salt crystals. So the bottom line for that is that after opening capers, if they're in brine or vinegar, they should stay in that liquid and in the refrigerator. But if it's packed in salt or if it's dry packed, they can stay very safely but tightly sealed in your pantry. I need to also mention that in this article is this table that gives a quick review of all of the condiments that they mention here and whether or not it's best to store them in the pantry or in the refrigerator. So I just copied and pasted this little chart and printed out only the chart. The whole article, if I were to have printed it with all of the pictures and everything, it would have been 23 pages. So I've greatly condensed it. And so you'll want to perhaps not print out the article, but it's there for you to read, and then you can cut and paste this article. The next thing they talk about is chili crisp, and this is also something that I do not have. And they say that the flavors will stay longer if it is in the fridge. Pantry is fine if you finish jars quickly, but chili crisp stays fresher longer in the refrigerator. I've never used chili crisp, so those of you that have, I hope this is good information for you. The next condiment is fish sauce. And I just started using fish sauce recently in a recipe that called for it. Actually, I did that recipe as one of our videos. And I love it. I don't know why I haven't used it any sooner. And most of these condiments say refrigerate after opening, as I mentioned earlier. This one does just that. But because it's kind of like soy sauce, I just put it down in with my other sauces like soy sauce. But here's what it says. The pantry is fine. Refrigerate for longer storage if you want to avoid shifts in the flavor. So because I don't use this in a lot of my recipes, I will be moving this to our refrigerator. Next is honey. Now, Jim and I are somewhat experts on honey. I've been a beekeeper for over 40 years. We gave it up probably 6 or 7 years ago, just as actually about the same time that we started our YouTube channel. We gave our hives to our children to continue the family tradition of having bees. So I've had everything from 30 hives to about 4 hives, and we love our home-produced honey. This was not a great location for bees because it's desert. There's hardly any forage for it, so we were planting our back field areas with forage for the bees. But our biggest honey flow is in the fall with the rabbit brush, and the honey is just a little bit strong, and we just learned to love that honey. So this is probably 10-year-old honey. Honey stores indefinitely in a dark place, and it even was discovered in Egyptian tombs, and the honey was still good. And so this is completely crystallized. And so before we use this, Jim will need to use his technique for liquefying it again. He puts it on a very low heat. He puts a cloth in the bottom of a pan with, then fills it up to the top of the pan with water and does not boil it, but he just leaves it on. You don't want to heat honey too high. Some people say 110. We never got our honey up to 110. We got it up to about between 80 and 95 degrees to liquefy it. But it never goes in the refrigerator. Don't refrigerate your honey or it will trigger it to crystallize faster. Next is hot sauce, and there are all kinds of hot sauce. These are just a couple of examples. Different styles of hot sauce require different ways to care for it. So the vinegary types are fine at room temperature, but the thicker, more viscous ones need to be refrigerated. We just refrigerate all of them. I keep our hot sauce in the refrigerator. Next is jams and jellies. And we've been buying our jams and jellies lately. I need to make some more of our raspberry jam. Plus, our plum tree is producing this year, so that means more plum jam. But this was a shocker to me, an absolute shocker. I have always kept our jams and jellies just in this cabinet right over here, so in the pantry. And their recommendation is once it is opened, keep it in the refrigerator. And they give several cautions about it. You know, it's very sugary, and so my thought has always been, I mean, I grew up in a household where we never refrigerated jams and jellies. And since living in this house, we have had one jar develop mold on the top, and it was one of my home canned ones and not one of these. But the sugar is such that microbes have a hard time growing, but mold can grow. And when mold appears on the top of jam, you know that it has little stringy things that go down into the jam, so you're just going to want to toss it completely. But their recommendation is to refrigerate it and to never double dip. If you are going to be spreading your jam on toast, then you dip the jam out with something and put it on your toast and spread it with something else, so that that spoon or knife that you use to go in the jam, the only thing that is ever touched is the jam in that bottle. And so double dipping introduces bacteria. And they say never take a finger load of jam. I thought, who does that? I don't know. So anyway, I don't believe that we're going to be putting ours in the refrigerator because we've had such good success with it just on the pantry shelf. But that is something that everybody needs to decide for themselves. So what is the bottom line on ketchup? Well, if you can go through ketchup as fast as your local hamburger joint does, with those ketchup bottles sitting on the tables, then you can leave it in your pantry. But if you want to preserve the texture and the taste and the color, then you're going to want to refrigerate it. We keep ours in the refrigerator. Next is maple syrup. This was also a surprise to me. Unlike honey, pure maple syrup, which this is, needs to be stored in the refrigerator so that it does not get moldy. We love, this is Costco brand maple syrup. It's a wonderful price. I just wish that the jar was clear so we could actually see the syrup. So you just need to be mindful of bacteria growing on the top or mold growing on the top with this one. Then with mayo, while the article says you can keep this at room temperature, but you may not want to. And we fall into that category where we do not want to. So with their bottom line for mayo says, a cool pantry is safe for commercial mayos. Always refrigerate your homemade stuff. We've made homemade mayo, and I knew with the raw eggs in there that would belong in the refrigerator. So the best place for this in the refrigerator is on the refrigerator door, which is a little bit warmer than other parts of the refrigerator. Then, what about mustards? We have several different kinds of mustards. And in one line they say, if you have a whole lot of different types of mustards, refrigerate them all. But if you have only one type, you can leave it out if you are using it very regularly. So there you have that. Pantry is fine, but the fridge will keep it spicier longer. Then next we have oils. Now, these are some little specialty oils that I have. And one of the things that they say is that oils are pretty much okay in your pantry, but if you have some specialty oils, you may want to refrigerate them. This is white truffle oil. This was some EVOO, some, extra virgin olive oil from Italy that a friend of mine gave to me, a friend at the university who went to Italy gave this to me, brought that back as a gift. And then this is just a little bottle of avocado oil. But we buy oil in large containers, and they all just stay on our pantry shelf. So bottom line for oil, cool dark pantry is fine. For delicate oils, the fridge is better, especially in hot weather. Next is oyster sauce, which I do not have, always in the fridge. After opening, they must go in the refrigerator. There's no ifs, ands, or buts there. Then after that one is peanut butter. So I never even thought about keeping peanut butter in the refrigerator. We always keep it on our pantry shelf. But there are natural peanut butters where you have to stir the oil back in, and those you need to maybe watch a little bit. You can keep these in the pantry for 2 or 3 months. After that, refrigerate it. But if it smells a little bit off, get rid of it. This jar of peanut butter is 4 years old. We just brought them in the house from our storage outside, and they taste just fine. So we're leaving it in the pantry. Then our pickles. So this one is from the store. This one is home canned. This one was on the grocery store shelf, and it went in the pantry until we opened it, and then once opened, it goes in the fridge. These are my home canned, and same thing. Once we open them, they go in the refrigerator. Also, refrigeration will keep the pickles crispier so that's a good idea too. And then, as a reminder, they say keep them fully submerged under the brine. After pickles comes salsa. Fresh salsa, like pico de gallo, or any fresh that you might make yourself, belongs in the refrigerator. If you have purchased it at the grocery store, on the grocery store shelf, those can also stay out. They are theoretically processed to be safe in the pantry, but they are also a little bit more vulnerable to spoilage if you leave them out. The fridge will keep them safer, and that's where we keep our sauces, is in the fridge. Then is soy sauce. Soy sauce has enough salt that harmful microbes can't take hold. But, there are some low salt versions as well, so you need to be mindful there. The pantry is fine, but the fridge keeps soy sauce at its peak flavor. And so we always keep ours in the refrigerator. Then we have tahini. And you can see that our tahini has separated. I keep this in the refrigerator and have to stir it up each time. But listen to what they said. When we store it in the pantry, then it's easier to mix and it can be drizzled. But when it's in the refrigerator, it thickens. And if we store it in the fridge and want it thinner, then you have to just leave it out for a while. But the takeaway on that is store upside down in the pantry for drizzling. So I'm going to put this back in the refrigerator this way, and then store in the fridge for spreading. Both are safe. So good to know. Then we have vinegars. Oh, do I love our vinegars. And this is just a small sampling of what we have. So this one is balsamic. This is white balsamic vinegar. Jim looked all over our area to find me some white balsamic, and this is the only size available. So I treasure that one. And then this is red wine vinegar. We have malt vinegar. We have a lot of different kinds of vinegars. So it is shelf stable, and actually vinegar is what is used for preserving many things. So you would think that vinegar is just fine to be stored in the pantry, and it is, but it is not indestructible. It can also develop some molds. And so we want to keep it away from heat and sunlight, air and moisture. Make sure that the lids are very tight. The same with oils. We want to really fasten down those lids before we put them wherever it is that we're going to store them. And then last of all is Worcestershire sauce. And the vinegar and salt in Worcestershire sauce help preserve it. But if you don't use it really often, if it doesn't move fast, if you're not going through a bottle really quickly, then put it in the refrigerator. I keep mine in the pantry. We use Worcestershire for a lot of things. So that is it. And I thought that it was very, very interesting. We're all going to do what we're going to do anyway, but this gives us some data and some knowledge that will help us make decisions if we're waffling on some things. And you noticed, I'm sure, that there's not a hard and fast rule for most things. And what they said was that it is generally not a health issue in condiments, whether you store it in the fridge or the pantry, but it is more of a product preservation. A product will keep better and will keep longer, but generally not hazardous to the health if we keep it out, and it should be refrigerated. But just, of course, we'll all use our good judgment on whatever it is we decide. So I hope this is helpful for you. Remember that the link is under the description of the video if you want to access the article yourself. So thank you so much for being with us, and we will see you again very soon for more videos.